Okay, so I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Karen, for inviting me. And it's such a treat to have an opportunity to tell you all and share with you the great work that has been going on at Kutztown University with the dinner party curriculum and under the broader umbrella dinner party curriculum project. And I'm also, oh, how do we move this? Okay, here we go. There we go. All right, so here's my plan. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of the project. Then I'll share with you if you have not seen or are not familiar with the dinner party curriculum. I'll give you a brief overview and show you some examples of some of the things that you might find there should you download some of those PDF files that are available to you. I'll share with you the Dinner Party Institute, which is really the heart and soul of the dissemination of the dinner party curriculum, and you'll hear from me how it began. The Dinner Party Institute began as an invitation to art educators all over the nation, and who answered the invitation, and 45 people came to Kutztown. And I'll tell you more about that for that first institute. And then how over time we stopped inviting people because they were coming anyway. And we're still inviting them essentially, but we're telling them a little bit more about what happens when they get there by saying that it's creating, what we're focusing on is creating pathways with the dinner party, because we began to see what really happens when people get together and start using it, and what happens when they leave the institute and take these various pathways. And we wanted to share some of those pathways with you at the end, toward the end of the presentation. So that's the plan. I'm hoping that we'll pull it off. Okay, so October 2006, I got a call. Where's Constance? So I get this call from Constance Gardner-Gee, who says, Marilyn, you know, I've been talking up your curriculum ability, writing ability, and I want to know if you would be willing to write a curriculum to go with Judy Chicago's dinner party. No. No. That would be an awesome, challenge, and I just don't think that I want to do that alone. And so I said, well, that's really a fascinating idea. I have these wonderful colleagues at my home institution of Kutztown University of Pennsylvania and our Department of Art Education, great feminists and great curriculum people. And I said, how about I get together with them and see if they're interested in this project. And so, as it turned out, I mean, there were a few little iterations a little bit before that, but at one point, we all convened at my house in October of 2006, and Judy Chicago came, to my house. I was thrilled to death, and I had to make sure I had an exercise room available to her, and she came, and by the way, the bedroom is still referred to as the Judy Chicago bedroom. And so here are some of my colleagues. Carrie Nordland, Peg Spears, and others were at that meeting as well. And we talked about what it would be to create a curriculum to go with the dinner party. And we shared with Judy some of our ideas about curriculum. We shared with her some resources that we had seen and had been created, some virtual or digital versions of curricula and packets of information and binders and things that a lot of curriculum developers had produced, and we shared those with her. And we argued, I think, for something, we all sat around and talked flexibility. We talked about something that would not be dictatorial, prescriptive, something that teachers could find themselves in and take pieces of and move out on their own, and yet a curriculum that would, unlike many of the things that we had encountered before that, give full tribute to the work of art. And to understand how it's filled with layers of meaning, and we wanted a curriculum that would allow people to kind of pull at the strands within the artwork, and not deny its integrity, which is what had happened in several examples of teachers taking the dinner party into the classroom, like, for example, the plates that honored, the kids made in a school that honored a whole lot of artists, most of them male. And so it was that sort of misunderstanding of the work that led us to think about how important it would be to really spend time investigating it carefully and coming to deep understanding of its meaning. So there we are in Constance as well. We met around the table, and one of the things that became pretty clear to us was that given Kutztown's long history in art teacher preparation for sure, but also since the early 80s having summer professional development institutes for teachers. And we offer anywhere, from 3 to 10 in a given summer. And they were doing that well before I came to Kutztown. And we know how to do it, and we know how successful it can be. And so we said, let us try to have this party, in a sense, inviting people to this dinner party institute and think about having teachers collaborate with us to create curriculum. So that was the intent of the first institute that we had the summer of 2007. And as I said, 45 teachers came from all over. And Judy was there, Constance was there. We introduced the participants to the artwork in a lot of different ways. We came up with activities that they could then perhaps even take back to their classrooms, and as they thought about how they might incorporate the dinner party in their own programs. We thought it was important for people to sit at round tables, for example. We were modeling not only how to investigate an artwork deeply, but also feminist pedagogy and how to make sure that everyone had a voice. We introduced, through lots of hands-on activities and group work, we introduced the idea of metaphor, beginning with the table metaphor that's so essential to the dinner party. As people introduce themselves by providing images of tables that are important to them in their own lives. We thought it was important that we would develop small little groups, and people began to talk with each other during the Institute and then outside of the Institute. And we, again, used our own curriculum knowledge and our experience in developing instructional materials to put packets together for the teachers to explore the components of the dinner party. We invited the participants to extend an invitation to the dinner party using the tough criteria that were used in the original creation of the dinner party. And they were invited to create an artwork that would go along with their argument for this particular woman whom they wished to honor at the table. And here's an example of someone who came from far away and brought an artwork that she'd worked on before coming. The other thing that was real important was that we really adhere to solid, substantive ideas about curriculum. I believe it wasn't much, the first institute started just about the time that a book that I co-authored with a colleague of mine, Sydney Walker, but represented a great 5-year multi-million-dollar project that called Transforming Education Through Art Challenge, sponsored by the Getty and Annenberg, among other people. And that book, Rethinking Curriculum in Art, puts forward the idea of teaching around important ideas. And so in order to instead of just simply skills, but to have a conceptual approach to what we do in planning curriculum. And so those ideas about curriculum were also important as we planned the Institute. And so we spent a lot of time thinking about what are the ideas that are embedded in this experience of the dinner party. And these were some. And here are some others. So across cultures, women have played important roles in history. Artists can be researchers. Art can document historical events, or I'm not sure what came after that. Definitions of history are fluid and relative. People are included and excluded, who decides, and so on. So these ideas were generated by the people in that first institute. And the idea was that one could create curriculum that would feature the dinner party, for which the dinner party would be catalysts, but that would also explore these important human ideas. An important piece of our institute that first year was our trip to the Brooklyn Museum to see and meet with Judy. And this, of course, was the dinner party was permanently housed in the Brooklyn Museum and the Elizabeth Sackler Center for Feminist Art that year. So March of that year was and we were there then to see the work with Judy. And that continues to this day to be an important part. Our visit to Brooklyn is absolutely central to our institute. This is the original team with Peg Spears and Constance and one of our first grad assistant, and Carrie Nordland, and our second grad assistant, Dolores Eaton, who's still part of the team. And this was the whole group that first year at the Brooklyn Museum. So those people, those first individuals who came to the Institute, went back and then did a lot of writing and then sent us their ideas about how to connect the dinner party into their own programs back home. And as we gathered those ideas and those documents and CDs and images and so on, it was probably like sorting through the archive. I mean, like, what do we have here? And as we thought about how do we what's a frame for this curriculum that we're going to then create, based on these other voices and our own ideas about curriculum, how shall we frame it became an important question for us. Oops. See, this is why I needed my notes. Let me just back up and say, in another important part of the Institute, before we got all those materials from those people, we had a potluck. In that, if you're familiar with the history of the dinner party and have seen the movie Right Out of History, The Making of the Dinner Party, you know that the potluck is an important time for people to gather. And so we, to this day, we have the potluck as part of the Institute. And and the other part of the Institute is homework and serious, thinking and reflecting on important ideas, and notebooks, journals, and so on. When our participants read, we ask them to underscore ideas in their readings and bring those back together and share those with others. These are on strips of paper, and this is the result of one of those activities. Now, and so I show you the screenshot from the website, from Penn State's website, where, as Karen said, you can find the dinner party curriculum. And the question is now, how did we get here? Now I'll go back to those people who were all gathered together at the end at the Brooklyn Museum, the people who went out and came and sent us their ideas. And our search for a framework. We decided actually that what we had planned for that week, for people to be engaged in the dinner party and in its investigation, those activities were pretty good, because it really got those folks involved. And by the way, it seemed to work. And so the frame actually became that first week. But we thought about what the parts were, and what we did was divide the activities, with their rationales, into what we called 14 encounters. And so an encounter is not a lesson plan, it's not a unit of instruction, it's conceptually based, and it's a way of thinking, a way of encountering either the artwork or some part of the context that surrounds the artwork. The 14 encounters are divided into 4 parts, so that it's not necessarily a sequence. Teachers who use the curriculum are invited to enter it at any point, depending on, their own knowledge and the knowledge of their students, the background and experiences of their students, so that the first part that we have is really just this notion of table talk and an introduction to the idea of metaphor, using that same table talk exercise that you saw on the images earlier. Also, that activity that we had early in the institute, where we extend the invitation to another person who meets the criteria that were used in the original dinner party. Part 2 has to do with raising consciousness, thinking about feminism and gender. And there's an activity in there called mapping identity that you'll see represented later in an image. Finally, we continue with this notion of context and think about gender matters in art history and thinking about feminist art. And then part 4 is really taking each piece of the dinner party and looking at it very carefully. And in each case, the encounters are suggestions, and one encounter might have several different ways to think about that topic and approach the artwork. Here's one encounter, for example, investigating meaning. Again, what we were doing with the cards and packets that you saw represented earlier. This becomes an encounter many pages long with an overview and then suggested activities and resources. Then the other important parts, then you say, well, what did you do with all those people and all that work they did and they submitted all these things? Well, what we did was we saw that people who came to that first institute took little pieces, and then they built on those and adapted them for their own programs. And so, for example, the table talk was adapted for a younger grade level by these 2 teachers, and that becomes what we call in the curriculum the classroom connections. And here's another mapping identity in relation to a much more complicated one. This is now a classroom connection in the dinner party curriculum project. Another classroom connection, I'm sorry. So we have the encounters with classroom connections that were written by teachers from that first group. And then we also have a section called Beyond the Dinner Party, which is taking one piece of it and moving into another space. Kind of like Karen was talking about the connections with science and so on, taking one little part and moving outward. So the dinner party is important in this unit of study that was written by Hannah Koch when she went to the Sewell Belmont House in Washington, D.C., prompted by her exploration of the Susan B. Anthony plate, and connected with the archival materials at the Sewell Belmont House and created a 3-part unit of study that merges suffragist ideas and the dinner party meanings. And it's wonderful, and it's there. So since 2009, we've been putting together this institute. This is a screenshot of our website. If you push that little arrow, you get Sojourner Truth, who's telling you why she's at the table. It's another, and we hope to have all the different women at the table telling you why they're there. And you can see that the dates are the 13th through the 18th, and there's we'll keep those dates in mind. So we've had the Dinner Party Institute, as I said, as central site for exploring the dinner party curriculum and introducing it to participants from all over, and then encouraging those people to go out into their classrooms and try some of what they've learned and share that back with us. So here we are just a couple months ago planning for this coming summer. One of the things that's happened over the years is that the team has shifted and expanded, and it's with wonderful new membership. And some of the people who are members of the team were at one time participants. which is just wonderful. So, and the other thing that we are always expanding, in addition to the team membership, is the content. Because with new team members, we have new expertise, new interests, and that's what keeps it fresh and exciting, actually, for me, year after year. Here we are playing with iMotion, animation, and we're imagining how we're going to have incorporate technology into one of the activities this summer. Here's the team, and we're without Sherry Ehrlich, who we have FaceTime with. She always comes to our meetings, even if she can't come in from Brooklyn. But again, we're meeting around that same table from 2006. Our schedule pretty much stays the same. We start on Sunday with a dinner and a movie, when we see right out of history the making of the dinner party. And one of the activities that we've done, which is in one of the encounters, is we look at gender assumptions and with children's toys, which has been replicated. Teachers are using that all over the place as a result of doing it with us. We give them the hard copy. We print out a hard copy of the dinner party curriculum, actually part of it. We don't do all of the extra pieces, because then it would be like this thick. As it is now, it's like this thick. So, but they tend to want to have it right there and be able to write notes on it and so on. But we also are right next door to this room, right in the midst of our art education wing, is our computer lab, where people can go in and access the now, and Karen will come down and talk to our people about the archive, and also the dinner party curriculum. One of the things we do constantly is, as we're involved in activities, we're constantly showing them where they can find it in the curriculum, so that they can make the connections between their engagement and then what's available to them for their own teaching. Here's an example of that mapping identity that people have done. The circle is very important to us, and we fill those chairs a lot and have some wonderful conversations in that room around that circle. We're still investigating meanings using some of the same instructional resources from that first year, again with the idea of going deep and making connections. And we're still having homework assignments and expecting people to read and report out. We provide tons of resources for them, and it's endless. We're still looking. This is one of the activities in the. It's looking at tradition, and we're looking at handwork over time, and talking about issues surrounding handwork and art by women. We look at. We've got a wall of memory for. To honor women artists. We're always looking, we have the heritage panels up, and we use those on a regular basis. Lots of discussions. One of the additions to our the Institute, and again, this has to do with the people who have come and joined our team. Here's Nicole Romansky, who is also a dancer, and she's introduced movement for the last several years, and we, it's really been wonderful. One thing she's had us do is take breaks and move around, and then secondly, she has groups interpret the banners that one follows as you enter the dinner party with Judy's poem. That's a warm-up, just getting us stretched out. We continue to have the potluck dinner, and we have it at my house. It's always fun, and I think an important part. We do that on Tuesday night. Then we always, again, go into New York and kind of speed in and speed out. We are met now with by Alexa Fairchild, yes, thank you, here at the Brooklyn Museum, who is the educator who replaced Sherry Ehrlich at the museum, but I'll tell you about Sherry in a minute. And Alexa and Saisha, who is associate curator at the Sackler Center, take us through have this wonderful exercise where we go through the museum and think about depictions of women, representations of women. so I have 5 minutes. Crickets. That's really, we're all over the museum and thinking about women and how they're represented, and it's a wonderful way to sort of expand on our day with its main focus, of course, on the dinner party. Here's Sherry, and Sherry was our first art museum educator who worked with us, and she's now part of our dinner party team and a doctoral student at Teachers College. And she's the one who Skypes in with us. But Sherry, when we were going to the Institute with Sherry, would make sure that we saw goddess figures and explore them and interpret them. Isn't that great? And then we would go down and actually make some, with the assumption that women made these in groups, and the figurines that we find, like the Venus of Willendorf. I have no idea how connected this is to, really solid art history. But anyway, we're told that they were done in little groups of people hurrying up and trying to get them done as fast as possible, because that's what we do. But anyway, that's kind of stuck with us as well. And a lot of people wondered how they could take that back to their classrooms, but we said, don't worry. Anyway, so again, the important part of this, and certainly what we've been building up for, is our visit to the museum to actually explore the dinner party in person. By this time, now that we're doing it later in the week, the participants are eager to explore it and feel that they have a handle on what they're going to be seeing. And they all choose one woman to research before they come, so that they can share what they've learned about the plate and place setting with other members of the group. We've met with Judy then in a circle and talk about, and she always asks tough questions and asks the participants to tell her about what they're thinking about and how they think they're going to take this material back. And of course, sometimes she responds characteristically, Judy. I love this. Can't even imagine what you were saying, but I can almost imagine what the participant was saying. And another important part of our visit is to honor the Minx Auerbach Award E. We offer the Minx Auerbach Education Award, and have been since I guess the first year. The first year, I'm not sure what year that was, but Andrea Horn, who you see here on the right, was the first recipient of the award. And like the Judy Chicago Award, the teacher shows evidence of taking the dinner party into her or his program, whether it's an art program or whatever kind of program, and makes solid use of the materials available through the Dinner Party Curriculum Project. And here are some of our award winners: Andrea Reich, Deb Philbin, who's with us today and is now a doctoral student at Northern Illinois University, and comes back with us and shares with us what she is up to each year. Brandy Nudie, also, who comes back, and she's also in the room, winner of the award. Jennifer Mazziata Walter, winner last year. And there'll be, again, another award this year. And the applications are due May 15th. So, and they can be found on the site. Now, I wanted to show Connie Lavelle because she's here as well, and she comes with Brandy and helped to talk about what they're doing, because they co-teach. So now, the dinner party team will just hand you these white handouts, the paper version of this. And I'm not going to be able to take you through each of these, but know that what we've seen is that the Dinner Party Institute, with the dinner party curriculum at its core, is a catalyst for all kinds of activity that happens, both in terms of scholarship, in terms of professional development opportunities, and most importantly, in terms of teaching. And I'm just going to show you a few images of teachers, the work that teachers have done, and I'm going to try to do this without talking much. Here's Stephanie Owens. The kids are looking at gender assumptions, and these are 5th grade students. Here's someone who took the Artful Bras project and merged it with the dinner party project with high school students, and they created their own bras to honor women of history. This is a wonderful, wonderful, and she now is a Penn State student. I'm thrilled for you. Nicole Conway, who took the Institute and came back to her home in Bellefonte and learned about important women in history, and included that with her students. Here's an example of someone who met Judy through the Institute. She's got a community arts center in Maryland and works with teens about social issues in the summer. We've had conferences. We've gone to conferences, both national, and we have so many of our participants who go off and present at state conferences. We've had, this is a pre-conference workshop at the dinner at the Brooklyn Museum with a group of people from NAEA. Here's Amy Bloom, who came, she's supposed to represent all these people who go on to do graduate work after the Institute. Our great change. We've got some scholarship out there, articles, and our team basically takes the material and goes with it. That's Amy. And in your packet, you'll see the flyer for this year's Institute, where, again, the focus is on creating those kinds of pathways. And I invite you to think of someone whom you know, if it's not necessarily an art teacher, but perhaps an English teacher, a social studies teacher, or an administrator or museum educator who you think might benefit from this. You might hand that flyer off to that person. And I invite you all to attend for any part of it that you can come for. So.